Chair, should we proceed with?
Yes, I was just going to tell you, go ahead with the housekeeping.
Thank you for participating in today's meeting. If attending in person, please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room, and please silence all devices. If translation is provided, click on the globe at the bottom of your screen to select either English or Spanish. Public comment will be taken after each item. If you're in the auditorium and wish to comment, please use the iPads located in the lobby or complete a blue speaker card as available. If you need assistance, please find a South Coast AQMD employee. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all agenda items. Times may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. More time will be allotted for Spanish translation that is not simultaneous. For questions or issues on making a public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-2432. That's 909-396-2432. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you authorize recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
I'd call to order the Station Resource Committee for the month of April and ask for roll call.
Good morning. Council Member Cacciari?
He's here, but he just stepped out.
Yes, thank you. Senator Delgado? She's also be here in a moment, probably. Supervisor Mitchell?
Present.
Supervisor Hagman? Here. Board Member Padilla Campos? Here. And Chair McCallum?
Here.
We have a quorum. Yes, thank you. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go on to our first item. It's an update on proposed amended rule 1171 presented by Michael Kraus. Hello, Mike.
Great. Hi, Chair. And hello, committee. Yes, I'm here to present to you amendments we're proposing for 1171, our solvent cleaning operations rule. Next slide, please. So by way of background, there are certain solvents that actually utilize what we call an exempt solvent, which means that the volatile organic compound has a very low or minimal effect on ground ozone. So those basically can help lower the VOC emissions in the mixture. VOC, of course, is very important because it's a constituent of ozones, and that's the standards that we're trying to meet. We also prohibit those solvents, however, when they're considered toxic or there's what they call a carcinogenic endpoint. And so that's a concern. As a matter of fact, we brought this to the committee back in 2017, and we were directed as a policy to prioritize those elements, but to make sure you look into it. So in 2018 and in 2020, there were two exempt solvents, or exempt VOC solvents, tertial butyl acetate, or TBAC, and parachlorobenzo trifluoride, or PCBTF, that were considered by OETA to have a high cancer potency. Next slide, please. So what we discovered, however, was as we're going to adopt those toxics and their cancer potency into our toxic rule 1401, we recognized that there's a number of businesses would then have to, going through those rules would then be challenged potentially in their operations and their ability then to be permitted if they happen to be utilizing solvents or coatings or what have you with those toxic chemicals. So what staff decided to do is go back and look at where those vulnerabilities could be with those operations. We wanted to make sure our businesses can continue to maintain the work that they're doing, but we also wanted to make sure that we were also protecting the communities and the environment when it comes to the usage of those types of solvents and coatings. So far, we've already passed two of these rules as we want looking to phase out these toxics, 1168, 1151. So those are already set in place. We're currently working on 3 upcoming rules that you'll be hearing from us on, and of course, this one currently dealing with solvents. So next slide, please. By way of background, specifically for the solvent rule, again, this is established VOC limits, so they have those in grams per liter for various types of cleaning solvents. Applicabilities could be anywhere, electronics and chemical, printing, manufacturing, even construction, as we've recently learned. And in our AQMP, our air quality management plan, we actually do have a control measure to look at these rules. And in this particular case, we looked at phasing out, as well as giving us a chance to take a look at the solvents in general to kind of see where there's opportunities we can lower the VOCs. And we're doing that across the board with the other coatings rules as well. This process, by the way, began over a year ago. Next slide, please. Specifically, what we discovered in our research and work with those industries out there, that TBAC was not identified in any of the solvent cleaning formulations that we found. However, in some areas, PCBTF was being utilized. However, we did also find that there were some suitable alternatives out there and during our site visits and meeting with some of the users out there, particularly large ones as well. And so there are alternatives that do not have PCBTF. And so we decided we'll go ahead and move forward then, with that prohibition. And this kind of helps inform us, by the way, when doing this research on how we sort of set those dates. So there's 3 different areas that we sort of set the date. One is more on the immediate prohibition of the usage of that. But we also recognize the fact that formulators are already out there having formulated those products. And we don't want to necessarily give them, a disadvantage of not having to be able to go what we call sell through those products. And then finally, we think about the users, right? Because the users might have already bought those products already, have them on the shelf, and want to use those still. So we also put in a use through provision, and usually we judge that based upon the shelf life of the product. Next slide, please. In addition, we got approached by the utilities with concerns on our aerosol cleaning exemption. So let me explain. So the rule currently exempts a certain amount of allowances for aerosol solvent cleaners. Unfortunately, they were finding that the makers of the aerosol were kind of dwindling in their availability, and also the way the utilities were actually utilizing this type of cleaning, and they were doing it in the form of a liquid form. So we wanted to retake a look at that again. There are some areas, however, that still use aerosol, so we wanted to make sure that we sort of kept it there in the rule, but we also wanted to re-examine what we do. So what we have usage limits already, again, in the rule, but in discussing with those users, we recognize that that's probably a lot, we're giving a lot more than that's actually needed. So we sort of reduced down those usage limits, and again, worked with different groups like the utilities, for example, like the construction industry. We just got a recent letter from Kayak, and we just met with them yesterday, actually, to discuss that. And I think we're making progress and a better understanding of what the rule's doing. And I think we're coming to agreement and helping resolve their concerns. So we just wanted to make that point. All right, next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, I remember now what I was going to say. Could you go back one? So if you notice that the limits were per day, there was a request by stakeholders to give them a little more flexibility by limiting them actually per month. That allows them in their operations, they happen to have a given day where they're utilizing a lot of the solvent cleanings, but for the rest of the month, they don't do that. It gives them a little bit more flexibility. We thought that was fine because, again, in the end, it's still the same amount, or actually, again, we've lowered it. Next slide, please. Okay, so then with regards to that liquid option for those folks, we again wanted to create it's important for us to create guardrails for these. And so working with, different groups, for example, like the utilities, on that, we set up some of those usage limits for, again, what they call the aerosolized, it's a denatured isopropyl alcohols, by the way, is the cleaning solvents that we're discussing. But in addition, we thought we'd add another little guardrail here, but it also creates flexibility as well for some of the users. And that's what they call this MIR, or reactivity. So just by way of background, reactivity is basically the potential for that particular solvent to form ozone. And so there's a way, of course, measuring that and also limiting that. And as you can see there in the table, we've created limits for that. And we've come to agreements, with the stakeholders with regards to being able to achieve that. Next slide, please. So overall, just so we know, the amendments do maintain, they actually ended up maintaining all the existing VOC limits in the rule, which we think is a good thing. We're also then able to still phase out those 2 toxics from the usage of those and the formulations of those. And as a result, we won't increase the emissions or really the cost of implementing this rule. Next slide, please. So for socioeconomic, then, there was no socioeconomic impact, so you would not be seeing a socioeconomic impact assessment since there was no additional cost burdened on the industry. Next slide, please. And on the environmental side, it's actually health protective because you're phasing out toxics, from being used and being emitted, and there's no adverse impacts, no increase in VOC emissions. This would qualify for an exemption. Next slide, please. And we're planning to take this to the board in June.
Thank you very much. I understand from your presentation that you're addressing the kayak concerns and that they seem to be more understanding.
That's correct. We met with them just yesterday. We walked through basically the rule. I think there might have been some confusion. So of course, it always helps to have those kind of meetings, create clarity, answer the questions for them. Mike seemed pretty resolved on the issues, but we are going to circle back with them and just make sure that we button that up. So yeah.
Good, thank you. Committee members, anyone wish to make comments or questions before we have public comment? Go ahead.
Just curious, at the end, it said subject to change. You anticipate a change to
I'm
the
sorry, could
meeting
you-
date in your last slide? Is it subject to change, or maybe I misread?
Oh, sorry, that's sort of standard language we'd have in case it does. But no, we are planning to take it to the board in June.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Seeing none others, we'll ask for public comment. Do we have any in-house?
Currently, no request to speak in-house, Chair.
Okay, there's several hands raised online, but I'm just concerned that it may not be for 1171. If you want to speak on 1171, please raise your hand. We have Steve Jepson.
Hi, this is Steve Jepson. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Hello, Chair McCallum, Station Resource Committee members, and South Coast AQMD staff. Thank you for the great presentation, Michael. I need to learn to listen as fast as you talk, but a lot of content in there. So once again, this is Steve Jepson, Executive Director for Clean Water SoCal. We represent 80 public water wastewater agencies in Southern California. As you know, public water wastewater facilities perform an essential public service, conveying and treating public clean water 24/7 in all types of weather conditions, in all types of communities. An important element of water treatment is disinfection. Ultraviolet or UV is regularly used for disinfection. Regular cleaning of the UV bulbs is essential to maintain disinfection performance. Multiple potable reuse facilities are planned or in construction to meet Southern California's water demands. These facilities will use UV as part of the rigorous state-required treatment standards. We don't want this rule to inadvertently compromise the ability to provide safe disinfection of our water supplies. For this reason, we respectfully request an exemption from proposed amended Rule 1171 for public water wastewater treatment systems. We have other concerns that are described in the comment letter provided. I support the comments forthcoming from my fellow water wastewater colleagues and look forward to working with South Coast AQMD staff on this rule. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today.
Thank you, Steve, for your comments. Next, we have Allison Torres.
Good morning, Chair McCallum and fellow committee members and staff. My name is Allison Torres, and I work with Eastern Municipal Water District, and I also serve as chair of the Clean Water SoCal Air Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments today. My comments today are related to proposed amended Rule 1171, which, as you know, regulates the solvent cleaning activities. We appreciate the presentation and the time that staff has put into this rule amendment process and the engagement with stakeholders. However, we do still have some concerns with the proposed changes. Maintenance and cleaning of disinfection equipment at water and wastewater facilities is critical to our sector and the treatment of water for public health. We are concerned with the unintended consequences of limiting these activities in the proposed rule, especially as future projects are implemented in water treatment. We have some additional concerns related to other maintenance activities that are outlined in a written comment letter submitted by Clean Water SoCal. We'd like to work with staff to discuss the solution before the board adoption of the amended rule. Thank you for your consideration and the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Allison. Next, we have Bill Quinn.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Bill Quinn, and I'm with CEEB, the California Council for Environmental and Economic Balance. My comments really fall into two categories today. The first is addressing the use of a cleaning solvent for specialized equipment for both electric and water utilities. In order to maintain warranties, manufacturers have required the use of specific cleaning materials. And while it's readily available in the liquid form, as you heard from Mike, the utilities have only been allowed to use it in an aerosol form, and this is becoming difficult to find. To our knowledge, that we are down to one supplier. So our request has been to allow the use of this material in a liquid form. By adding certain guardrails, these amendments address this issue. We thank staff for their dedicated work, including many site visits and numerous meetings. This has been a multi-year effort, and this part of the rule, we think we're there. The proposal makes other changes to the rule, including changes to record-keeping requirements. I have members who have raised issues during the last workshop, and we're not sure how staff will address these comments. We've not seen updated draft language since this workshop. We are confident, though, that we can work with staff and work through these additional changes and reach consensus on the entire rule. So thank you very much. I appreciate staff's help on this.
Thank you for your comments, Bill. Next, Rita Loof.
Good morning. Rita Louv, Director of Environmental Affairs for RADTEC International. RADTEC is the premier trade association for light and energy curing technology, UV, EB, LED. We speak on behalf of our over 800 members who are involved in a myriad of industry sectors, ranging from printing and packaging to nail polish. Our processes are all electric, eliminating the need for add-on control devices, thereby preventing emissions of NOx and greenhouse gases. Our products are not formulated with conventional solvents, and therefore VOC emissions are negligible. They are free of toxic materials and are considered super compliant as they go above and beyond current rule requirements. We are not using PCBTF or TBAC for cleanup, so I want to emphasize that our request is not dealing with the allowance of using toxic chemicals for cleanup. We are not using those chemicals identified by staff for our cleanup process. Most district coding rules have VOC limits around 300 grams per liter, and some go as high as 800. Our materials are well below 50 and provide the district with excess emission reductions. PAR 1171 will impact every single one of our market sectors. So we are asking the district to take into consideration the excess emission reductions that our companies have already voluntarily provided. Unfortunately, we cannot support the current rule proposal because it saddles our industry with burdensome requirements that do not result in benefit to air quality. We strongly oppose the new additional requirements for record keeping and reporting and labeling. And our members and customers have tried to use low VOC cleaners at their facilities for years, only to find that acetone-based cleaners leave residue on UV lamps and reflectors, thereby compromising the optical efficiency of the system. Additionally, acetone-based cleaners are highly flammable, and since our equipment is electrical, any spark can lead to devastating fires, not only for the facility, but for the community at large. Waterborne cleaners also have problems around electrical equipment. Water and electricity do not mix, so that's a fire hazard and risk to workers. So we humbly ask that the district restore the previous exemption for UV cleanup. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita, for your comments. Next, Perry Katzman.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Perry Katzman. I'm representing the International Ultraviolet Association. IUVA submitted written comments to staff on Rule 1171. IUVA is a nonprofit organization representing the interests of companies using ultraviolet technologies and manufacturing UV lamps or equipment. UV disinfection is currently used by public agencies in Southern California because it is a chemical-free alternative that offers advantages such as no chemical byproducts. Our comments are specific to ultraviolet light treatment systems and ozone generation via exposure to UV light. I would like to voice some of the concerns that our end users have expressed, which were not highlighted in the staff presentation. The staff report mentions that various public agencies are using UV systems for water treatment and that they need flexibility to clean equipment such as ozone generators, UV sterilization systems, and electrical components associated with providing clean water. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power is currently completing the construction of a new ultraviolet disinfection facility at the Los Angeles Reservoir. This UV plant will treat water leaving the reservoir and entering LA's water distribution system. According to LADWP, the technology is ideal for treating chlorine-resistant microorganisms and providing essential disinfection while minimizing disinfection byproducts, reducing the need for required chlorine doses. The new state-of-the-art LA Reservoir UV disinfection plant is an important investment in the reliability and safety of LA's drinking water infrastructure, greatly enhancing LADWP's mission to deliver pure, clean, refreshing tap water in an efficient and publicly responsible manner. First, the definition of ozone generators in the rule completely excludes ultraviolet technology. We have asked staff to amend the current definition to include all technologies and ensure that the rule is technologically neutral. Keeping UV lamps clean is essential for optimal performance. Dust, dirt, and residue can accumulate on the lamp surface, reducing its efficiency and potentially leading to overheating or other issues. Non-alcohol-based cleaners may leave residue behind. Switching to new cleaning products may result in sterility issues and UV equipment not operating at peak performance. Requiring water agencies like LADWP and the Metropolitan Water District to switch from conventional cleaners and experiment with new cleaners can result in contaminants not being removed from drinking water. We respectfully request that water treatment agencies using UV for water disinfection operations be allowed an exemption in order to protect Southern California's drinking water and public health. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Ambar from CBE.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Amber Rivera. I'm a researcher at CBE, a social environmental justice organization in Huntington Park. I'm also a member of the Southeast LA AB 617 Community Steering Committee. First, I do want to thank AQMD staff for the work on this rule. It definitely needed an update given that there's been, other agencies updating their rules on solvents. So I really appreciate the phase out of TBAC and PCBTF. But I did want to raise a few concerns on this rule based on what I read the last time. I don't think that there's a rule that would require facilities that are adjacent to residential areas or neighborhoods to alert or post a notice of potential solvent vapor exposures. There are a lot of areas in Southeast LA where homes are literally less than 10 feet away from vehicles or auto repair shops or facilities that just use solvent cleaning operations or solvent cleaners. During the public workshop for Rule 1171, AQMD staff did share that, it would be complicated because there's just so many sites, but they would look into it, which I appreciate, and I would love a follow-up on that. But this just brings an issue of not just VOC exposure, but highlights, how incompatible land uses are just further burdening EJ communities who already bear a disproportionate amount of industrial exposure, right? In this case, VOC emissions. While this rule will reduce VOC emissions, it should also be paired with notices so current and future workers, residents, and communities are aware of potential exposures. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of our public comment period. Staff, would you like to address the public comments?
Chair, we had one late blue card submitted for an in-house public comment.
Okay.
Larry Black.
Larry Black. Larry Black. Go ahead.
1111
Oh,
and
sorry.
1121.
Sorry, we're not on that yet.
Yep, right.
So staff, would you address the comments, public comments?
Sure, no problem, Chair. All right, so with regards to the request for this exemption for UV, this is, by the way, the first time we're hearing that this week. This was not made during the rulemaking process. However, I will say that during the rulemaking process, we did work with the utilities. We, in the working group meetings and likewise, and more particularly, it was highlighted about LADWP and the Metropolitan Water District. Both of those agencies did work with us and help crafting the rule language as well as the usage limits. Those are ones that they believe they can work with. It is true that in the future, they may be increasing their usage of UV disinfection, et cetera. And we came to the agreement that if that happens to be the case, we can go back and we can revisit and take a look at where they're at that point. But at this point, the limits that we're proposing are acceptable and workable. Just a reminder, however, that these types of products already had limits on there. So to just jump right to an exemption would be backsliding in the rule, and that would be problematic. So that's one thing. With regards to Mr. Quinn's request on the record keeping, we did hear from him. This was an issue of, it's sort of procedurally, we had words in there such as like on site, but in other rules, we've also had allowances for things like make sure you have record keeping available upon request. That worked with them, so we're going to making that change. It is correct. The current language currently online does not have that because this has been a recent request, but it will be in the 30-day package. And then finally, there was a question about, again, talking about UV materials and products. Just a reminder, again, there is no change to the VOC limits in the rule, so they are existing to where they're at, and anything in the rule amendments that we're proposing here do not preclude the usage of UV and UV operations. So we don't really see there's an issue here.
You mentioned something at the beginning about the first time hearing something relative to UV.
That's not to UV, but to the request to exempt UV outright.
Okay.
We've been talking about UV as in the rule. We do have the allowance of that,
Right.
but there are guardrails and limitations. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Committee members, any comments or questions? Very good. Then thank you very much for the presentation. We'll go on to our item number 2, an update on the proposed rule 1111, 1121. Michael, you're up again.
So to make sure you didn't miss me. Okay.
But you could slow your talk down a little bit.
Okay. All right, so I'm here to present amendments for 1111 and 1121 that regulate residential furnaces and water heaters. Next slide, please. Okay, by way of background, we did propose a delay in the adoption of the rule back in November. By the way, it's now set for the June board meeting, as you probably already know. Okay, there were concerns, however, back at that November meeting that was raised about public outreach and awareness, as well as concerns about the rule concept at the time, which was it was just a mandate on going to zero emissions. So we did think about that, and I know we presented here before on some of those later thoughts. But I just want to remind everyone, why we're doing this, right? Where we still have not met 4 of our ozone standards in our region. And so to reductions in both NOx and volatile organic compounds is really critical, and that's why we're continuing to strive to meet that. But again, meet that in a feasible, reasonable, workable, and achievable way. The implementation of these particular rules would actually produce 6 tons per day of emission reductions, and that's a lot. Like, we have not had that since the refinery rules that produced around 7 to 8. And then also, we think, which the board also approved, was a Go Zero incentivized program. We do think we have to support the implementation of these rules to make them successful, and this would be a way to do that. Next slide, please. Again, another reminder that I've heard people say things like, well, you're regulating these building appliances. However, the agency has regulated these building appliances since 1978. And again, the enforcement of these has always been through things like the manufacturers and the distributors, retailers, and installers, and that will continue. And we've presented this to the committee 4 times now. Next slide, please. Okay, so since our last Stationary Source Committee presentation. We have put out what's called the myths versus facts. We think that this is really critical, particularly as we're receiving comments on what I would say is the mandate approach after we already presented the new approach. And we were feeling like we need to continue to try to get the correct information out there. So came up with that the myth versus facts outreach sheet. And we also did this in both English and Spanish, and they were both available online. We also have increased our email subscribers list. I think it's one of the more larger ones we've had outside of just our fee rules for every permit holder to 16,000 subscribers. Again, we've adjusted the rules, and those were published, at least the latest version of those were published on April 1st. The first version of that new concept, by the way, just to remind everyone, was published back on February 7th. Next slide, please. I know because everyone's interested in the public outreach, it's really important. We have been doing our sort of touring around our region, talking to Council of Governments. It's really important that's an easy way to kind of get to a lot of cities, right? So I went out to San Bernardino. There's 25 cities out there that were sitting around the table. I think it's San Gabriel has about 31 cities, and it just goes on and on to the different cogs. So it is a really important conduit to get that information out there. If you want to go ahead and click again, Guy, we'll kind of show you something that we came up with, which is the idea is to kind of show that while we're making that one presentation again at that one meeting of COGS, that you're actually spreading that information out to 25 or 31 cities, et cetera. So it's really compounded. As well as Southern California Association of Governments, or SCAG, as you know, encompasses even a further region than our own jurisdiction. Just want to point out here, I know the colors between San Bernardino and individual cities seems quite close. One should be orange, but they look all. So the individual cities are those in Orange County and in Riverside, and of course, the other ones would be San Bernardino. Next slide, please. So what have we heard from them? So there's been a mix of things that we've heard. So rolling out again the new concept to folks. Some of those councils and committees have decided to draft a letter of their concerns. Concerns about things we've heard before, right? Like affordability. And so we did receive a number of them from those folks that you see. Some just did receive and file, didn't take any action, and others actually came out to vote to oppose. However, when you look at the wording of those were opposing a mandate or a sort of forcing the consumer approach. Next slide, please. Furthering on the outreach, so these numbers have gone up. I think we've lost over the 100 stakeholder meetings. Probably could even be a little more precise on that. We've really upped a lot of the presentations out there. It's probably even increasing for more of this next week, et cetera. Public meetings, committee meetings, et cetera. So that kind of gives you a big overview of where we're at on the outreach numbers. Next slide, please. And what are some of the comment letters saying? So one of the things I wanted to note was, and on the opposition comments that we've got, again, we've got a number of those that we've received even after we had the new approach. But otherwise, some folks are, again, talking about a mandate. Some are talking about appliances that do not apply to these rules, such as like kitchen stoves, for example. Some have talked about outdated information, which we have, again, subsequently since updated. We've redone all of our analysis, our cost analysis based upon the latest 2024 data. And again, some just, outrightly say that you're mandating the homeowners to do that switch, which is not necessarily the case. Next slide, please. It's a reminder of what that new concept is. We're looking at sort of a glide path for the manufacturers to take over time to meet certain target goals. We also give them flexibility if they're unable to meet the goals. There was a concern about them being in violation. They wouldn't be in violation, but they would, in lieu of not meeting the goals, pay a mitigation fee. In the last committee meeting, I recall that there were some folks that had mentioned about the concern about, reporting the serial numbers on each one of those units, that if maybe they could just provide a model number, the type, that sort of thing, that would be acceptable, but the actual serial numbers in the reporting process is burdensome. They do already currently keep records, of that. So we felt it would be okay we'll go ahead and leave it under the record keeping side, but remove those from the reporting side.
I'm sorry, the revision is what?
The revisions removing the serials, submitting the serial number in their reporting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now this is the alternate compliance method.
Correct.
What is the other method? And what are the dates?
Right. So the way the rule is constructed, there's a new approach. Again, the new approach allows the manufacturer, okay, to sell both the gas and the zero units.
That's the alternate.
If they,
that's the
alternative, right? If they
compliance.
don't do that, they could choose to just sell all zero. That's a choice
And what
that
are
they would
what
have.
are the what
It's
are
like a
those
default. Yeah.
what are those deadlines
Ooh,
included in the language?
let's go. We give them some time to go ahead and submit their request to be in for that option. I don't know what the days. I'll get that to you in a second.
What I'm getting at is we've presented this alternative method to the board and the committee, but we've never talked about the other part of the rule. And I'd like to see that as part of any presentation.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of like, again, if they, just a reminder, all the manufacturers do sell both the gas and the zero. And this options allow them to kind of continue that business as usual approach.
If they choose to.
Correct. And if they choose, or they could choose to just sell all zero. Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, not a problem.
I just wanted to get the full rule language before the committee and the board.
All good. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so with regards to the mitigation fee, we did modify this as well since the last committee meeting. There was the question of whether that $500, again, the $500 would be paid only if they missed the target. So outside of what we consider the outside the target fee. And then we applied that to both those units. But since the committee meeting, we've now adjusted that for the water heaters. So we'll reflect the unit cost of that, and that seems fair. So that's now at $250 for the water heaters. And then nothing really has changed on the actual within the target mitigation fee at $150. Again, we think this is a nominal amount that wouldn't really change like an affordability balance of folks out there. It is only 1% of what would be the unit cost or unit installation cost, I would say. And again, that would go in to fund the Go Zero program to allow those folks to take advantage if they wanted that assistance. Next slide, please. Okay, so our vice chair left, but this is a slide for him because he did request that we look into this Assembly Bill 306. So for those folks that may not be familiar with it, this was a Assembly Bill that was approved by the state Senate back in April. The intended use of the bill was to sort of put a pause on any future changes to building codes in the state. Just to highlight that because our rule reflects the building code that's already on the books, already existing, it does not impact our rule proposal. This would just be for future changes. Next slide, please. We also did our socioeconomic impact with the new proposal. It's interesting. So we did two different types of approaches. There's been a lot of question of whether folks would actually start seeing utility savings due to the efficiencies of the electric heat pump. If you look at that from a context of like there is a savings over time because of that efficiency, then you would see an actual number of a cost savings. However, if you remove that cost savings, if you assume that there is no cost savings as a result of that efficiency, then there would be an actual cost side. So we felt that we wanted to present both of those there.
Go ahead.
Just while you're doing that, the cost savings, assuming that you're using maybe a different, cheaper fuel, and I have every indication that energy bill is going to go up over the life of this device. How do you factor that in?
Right. So it's slightly different. So yes, you're right. If current day, you look at how much you're paying for electricity versus how much you're paying for natural gas. Yes, there is the differential where it's more. However, when you look at over the time, the life of that equipment, right? When you have about 25-year life, let's say, on some of that equipment, you'll need to continue giving more natural gas to fuel that natural gas furnace as opposed to the amount that you'd be utilizing because the efficiencies of the electric heat pumps.
what about the price per kilowatt, I guess? Did you factor any kind of increase in that?
We did use the published future, the future pricing.
Rates.
Yeah. From the state. Okay, and then with regards to jobs, it was interesting because as we looked at the sectors and the impacts of what would be required, actually, when you look at some of the folks out there needing to do those electric wiring, everything we've been talking about, right? Like the panel upgrades, electric wiring, and things like that, as a result of of folks making that transition or possibly making that transition, it would actually gain then those jobs there. It'd be net neutral if it stays on the gas because that would be the same job that someone had done before. We'll continue doing that. This would be an additionality of those. So the socioeconomic impact resulted in that. And then we calculated for when you look at what kind of prevention, public health prevention over time for the full implementation of the rule. These are kind of the premature mortalities of 24, about 2,500 that would be prevented over the implementation of the rule. And then when you monetize those into those financial health benefits, and again, it's around 25 billion. And that assessment is out in the public domain now. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, just want to touch now on a number of key issues that have been raised. Of course, the first one being the mandate. Okay, and because of the new construct, this provides the ability for manufacturers to sell both those units, so not a hard and fast mandate. Even the targets themselves, again, are not, have a little bit of room for flexibility if they miss those to pay those in lieu of mitigation fees. And the businesses will then be able to make their own decisions on their business case with regards to, how much drive to get at the outreach and what have you. Again, they're selling both the equipment, so they have a little more control on that. With regards to affordability, we really feel like the new approach really does address that because it puts the consumer choice back to the consumer. It gives them their own individual determination of their own feeling of affordability, what they know themselves is affordable for them. And so that could be a range of things, whether it's choosing the gas versus the zero emission, whether it's a more expensive piece of equipment or a less expensive equipment, high efficiency, lower efficiency. It's all back to the consumer to make those choices of their own individual affordability.
How do you respond to the criticism that the mitigation fee will be passed on to the customer and cause the prices to go up?
Yes, so the within target fee, since that's already preset on the sale of that target unit, the sale of that gas unit would likely get passed through. I don't know. I'm not, it's not my business, but if that's the case, that's one of the reasons we kind of kept it, at a nominal amount, again, 1% of that. And we still think that's sort of within the affordability range, right? When you're talking about spending $10,000, $11,000 on a gas furnace, and we're asking for 100 to put into the Go Fund or the Go Zero, incentive fund, we felt that this is not that would not be considered burdensome. On the flip side, I just want to highlight that SoCal Gas actually has rebates themselves if you purchase a gas unit. Those rebates are higher than the mitigation fee we're asking. So that could also be a way they could make up for that.
Higher than the 250?
So now the 250 and the 500 are is paid by the manufacturer the year after, and then they don't make the target, right?
Yeah, but every manufacturer I've talked to says they'll pass it on to their customer.
Yeah, so I mean that's obviously, we can't dictate that. They could increase prices today, even without the rule. But again, we look at that as a need to incentivize and encourage those manufacturers, motivate those manufacturers, I would say, into meeting those targets. They would also not know about it until the following year, right? When they do those calculations.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Supervisor.
I wonder then if that lends to the argument that the fee should be higher, so manufacturers would be encouraged to comply versus paying the fee. Then they don't have to worry about passing it on to anybody.
Next slide, please. Okay, with regards to a request, it's sort of similar to what we're discussing here. There has been some comments being made about, whether we should oppose a higher mitigation fee. And, but as we kind of highlighted at the last committee meeting, we did feel that we then struggle with would that then defeat this affordability, concern that we're trying to answer, with our approach. In addition, there was thoughts of maybe within those, again, to continue to motivate the manufacturers, create sort of more of a percentage tiered increase. So if you've exceeded the target within 10% or between 10 to 50%, et cetera, again, another challenge. We fear that that if they did do that pass through, that would just make it even more challenging. In addition, we have to kind of keep in mind we have other stakeholders involved in this process. They're the manufacturers themselves, and so the manufacturers, while I believe we have a sense of agreement with them and understanding with them when it comes to this construct, they're concerned, right? Because they would put the burden on them, not only meeting the targets, but also having to pay that. And there's a sense of need for certainty of these things. So this would create more of that certainty if we've already sort of set what that would be. Next slide, please. Okay, choice, cost, and choice. So again, the new concept we think creates that flexibility for both the consumer as well as the manufacturer as well. It gives them flexibility on their sales, but also gives the consumer, again, their choice. They can choose what they want to replace their units with. And we also believe, as with a lot of types of products out there over time in the competitive market, and there's more of those prices go down for those products. There was also a comment made on the legal side of things with regards to the actual mitigation fee, whether that would be considered a tax. So, and there's a whole Prop 26, I'm sure you're all familiar with, on whether that could be imposed. We thought it was really important for us to sort of try to look at that from the idea that if we have this as an option, like you were highlighting, Chair, that would then take that away. Then there wouldn't be there would be an option for them. They could go all zero and not pay, or there would be the option in lieu of, and remove that issue. Next slide, please. And then there's an issue of preemption, so in accordance with federal law. And so we don't believe, that's the case with this. Again, it's an option right now. And, those caps that we talked about, those targets aren't necessarily fixed. They could have a level, there's a bit of flexibility there if need be. But we do have an obligation to meet our standards, and our rules has always been, technology and fuel neutral on that. So again, back to a choice, and we hope to seek to get those reductions for our achievements in our AQMD. Next slide, please. And then finally, I wanted to touch on this this document that I believe the committee received last time. It's from this group called Cost of Living group. So, we took a look at that. And I just want to highlight three major points of this. The first thing we've noticed was that the analysis was based on the old approach. The analysis was based on the mandate approach. So I just want to, highlight that. The second thing is we noticed in the analysis that we discuss sort of things like outliers. There's always those outliers, right? Those high costs, those maybe older homes, or more like you have to do a lot more. It's going to be a lot more costly, et cetera. It seems that the report took those outliers and basically made that like what everyone has to do. So basically create a super worst case kind of scenario. And then there were like little things that can really throw off and make those costs very high, such as an interest rate. So a typical interest rate in this point is around 1 to 4. We do those ranges in our socioeconomic currently. They used a percentage of 7. So that can really just pump up numbers, in those reports. So we just want to kind of highlight those elements to you with regards to that report. Next slide, please. And so for next steps, we're looking to take for the full board consideration in June. And we're right now in the middle of our contracts right now with our consultants on the Go Zero program, just so you know.
Thank you for the presentation. How many manufacturers are we talking about?
So there are 7 furnace manufacturers and 3 water heating.
And have we talked to all of them?
Yes.
And all of them are happy with the alternative approach?
I'm happy as a subject. I think they accept it. They're not we've been having these conversations with them, right? On on the approach, they understand the approach. They're not unfamiliar with things like mitigation fees, as you follow the history of this actual rule, this was one of the things that we've negotiated with them before, doing like something in lieu of, they pay a mitigation fee, which is how we sort of set the stage on the 500, because they were already paying around that previously.
Unfortunately, only one of the manufacturers had submitted any comments in writing. That was A.O. Smith relative to water heaters. The others have been participating in
Yes.
discussions rather than writing letters.
That's correct. Yes, we call them Zoom with them. Yeah.
Okay. Other comments before we go
Mr.
to
Chair?
public hearing?
Just
Go
quick
ahead.
question. I'm just curious, you said that you calculate 1 to 4% interest?
Yeah, that's what our socioeconomic team uses in their calculations.
I would love to get a 1 to 4% interest on anything right now. I just haven't seen it, so I don't know how we use that number. I mean, even cars are 5.9, but houses are 7, I'm just wondering if we came up with that interest rate. Once you figure that out, let me know, because I got some purchasing to do.
Other comments or questions? Go ahead.
I can respond to that if you like. That's the discount rate we use when we're doing our socioecon analysis for the net present value. It's probably a little outdated. I will say that the federal government uses 3 to 7% discount rate when they do their analyses.
Maybe we should update that.
Pardon?
Maybe we should use the updated rates when we do our economic analysis then.
Yeah, I would think so, yeah.
Mr. Chair, I have reactions and want to speak to the presentation, but I'm debating whether it's appropriate to do it after public comment or now. But I just want to make sure that I have time at some point to
Well,
have
if you
comments.
want time, you need to do it now.
So I should do it now?
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that. So may I go now then?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, thank you, Michael, for the presentation. You've been working hard today. I saw you before this meeting. You were also here. I was going to ask why the reduction in the mitigation fee for the non-compliant piece, right? From 500 to 250. And I think you sort of answered that in your different points. But I just continue to be very concerned about the direction that we're taking this rule. It seems that we've been trying to make someone happy, but we're really not making anyone happy, including those that at one point did support this rule. The current proposal is projected to achieve only 2.1 tons a day of NOx reductions, which is only half of the 4.2 tons a day that the original rule was suggesting. And then at our last meeting in the desert, we heard that it's going to become even more difficult to meet compliance because of at the federal level, because of what's happening at the federal level. So we have an even greater responsibility to reduce pollution from sources that we regulate here at AQMD. And we need these rules that we're passing each and every day to be effective and to help us really achieve our AQMP goals. We did receive a letter from the EJ groups proposing a tiered non-compliance penalty structure, which after looking at it carefully, I think it is the best way for us to move forward. I think it's reasonable, it's balanced, and it would be an enforcement mechanism that would really help in various ways. It would apply only to non-compliance. It will scale penalties based on the level of non-compliance. It will create stronger financial incentives for manufacturers to meet or exceed the targets, and it will promote equity. And then there will be more funds to go to the Go Zero, which will at the end benefit our low-income communities that this was meant to serve. So I'm asking staff to please revise the rule and to include the tiered penalty structure that was, it's in the letter that that was submitted. I also have it in front of me. I'm sure you all have seen it. I'm not sure we need to bring it up on the screen, but I would like to see us incorporate this to the rule and revise it in this manner. Thank you.
Vice Chair Cacciani.
Yeah, Supervisor had her hand up first.
Oh, sorry. Supervisor, you had your hand up first. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to again acknowledge the exhaustive outreach that the staff has done. It's really impressive, and so I want to thank you for that. I just wanted to clarify, the Mythbuster fact sheet probably wasn't done at the beginning of all that outreach. And so if that's the case, perhaps the fact sheet could be sent to the places and perhaps participants who were at those early meetings, just as a way to continue to try to replace myth with fact. And a couple things for me, Mr. Chair, as in that this is our fifth opportunity in this committee to have a conversation about these two proposed rules. I'm struck by the letter we received by the Association of State Air Agencies in the northeastern region of the state. I understand that the executive officer of CARB signed off on behalf of California. And I'm just concerned that we've made this kind of global commitment. We've locked arms with some of our fellow agencies in other parts of the state, which commits us to a standard kind of beyond what we're discussing today. The MOU commits the state to sell 65% zero emission furnaces and water heaters by 2030. So, how does that sit with AQMD that we are kind of out of sync with CARB, frankly, the commitment they've made on behalf of the state, and some of our fellow agencies across really our region, the Northeastern. Secondly, I really wonder if we're doing all that we can to establish true stretch goals for ourselves. If as the report and several reports have noted, that kind of sales targets are consistent with current market trends, shouldn't we aim to push the market a little bit as opposed to just kind of taking credit for the new status quo? If we really want to get to as many saved NOx tons as possible, it just seems to me as a regulatory agency, we should be using this opportunity to push the market. And lastly, I would say, I think it was slide 6 that kind of showed the juxtaposition in terms of what people asked for, their opposition, and kind of where we are. I'm not sure that our current version, which, as my fellow director just said, is kind of a far cry from where we started, impacts any of the opposition at all. We've certainly heard from opposition. We've tried to come up with this fact sheet. We've tried to make staff have worked very hard to create an alternative to show the opposition. We've heard them, but it doesn't appear to me to have removed any of the opposition. Is that with staff? Am I reading slide 6 accurately?
Staff respond.
Yeah, so on slide 6, we noted, I would say that in some cases that we did get those letters of opposition, but when you read the actual letters, you're correct that those are sort of directed toward the things that we've already sort of modified already. So they were against like mandates and that sort of thing and not having customer choice. So then are you saying that the letters of opposition are inaccurate, or nothing we have done has kind of relieved them of their opposition?
So if I may, it has been challenging. And as an example, we did go and do a presentation to our local government, small business association group and talked about the changes. And even after the presentation, the decision was to oppose proposed amended rules 11, 11, 11, 21, focusing still on the mandate, talking about affordability. But I think there has been a bit of a shift. And that was where we went to the environmental, natural energy these committees for San Gabriel and for Coachella Valley, where where they had an opposed position, they decided to do a letter instead to talk about specific aspects of the two proposed amended rules. And so we felt like that was, good because it wasn't a flat out oppose. So maybe it's, better steps into the direction, but we're still hearing, folks that are very focused still on the mandate that the rule was before. I hear Mayor McCallum in regards to making sure that we're being transparent on what the rule is saying, that there is the mandate, but the alternative, we're focused on the alternative, but we'll do a better job there. It's still sort of mixed out there. And next week, we go to OC-COG. I'm nervous, but we're going to do our best to communicate what the changes are, and we'll see, where the COG lands on that. So.
Well, I appreciate that. And I understand, particularly in the public domain, sometimes it's difficult to erase old tapes. Bad news and fear spreads sometimes faster than fact. So I, again, applaud the staff. I'm sorry that you're afraid about going to the meeting. I appreciate staff's vigilance in attending all of these council meetings and COGs and the myth busting fact sheet. And I wish you well. And I guess the last piece I would raise is we talk about 6 tons of NOx. I will acknowledge that that's probably the biggest reduction I've seen in a rule under consideration since I've joined the board. It's a far cry from where we began. It's significant. I certainly don't want to be in a position where we're going to continue to erode at even that possibility. And so as we continue to have the conversation about the mitigation fees, I'm concerned that if they aren't big enough, if it's not a big enough hammer, it won't work as it's designed to, which to encourage people to comply. And to remind us all that unless somebody has another bright idea, I'm open to hearing it. It's the mitigation fees is how we are going to fund Go Zero. And unless we have another idea about how to put funding into Go Zero to help people afford this transition, the mitigation fees do pay into that. And they are intended to be painful enough for people to want to avoid by complying. So this notion of trying to make the mitigation fees affordable is counterintuitive to me because they're designed as a deterrent, if you will. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comments, Supervisor. I think my personal opinion, I think we're at a sweet point on this rule where nobody's happy. Everybody, everybody has some problem with this rule. And so that makes, in my view, we've reached a rule that we can probably live with. And with that, we'll go on to Vice Chair Cacciati.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I agree with your last comment wholeheartedly. As this rule has evolved, our 5th meeting, as the supervisor said, and I've assessed it, I've evaluated as we've had, I've sat in some of those meetings, Mike, the one that lasted 3 hours several weeks ago, and just listened nonstop in my car at the gym. I didn't get the chance to work out that because it just kept going on and on and on. But our 5 meetings, it was at the COG meeting when Susan and Sarah both presented. So I think the direction is going, even though I wanted it a little stronger. I think I'm happy. You might have read the letter we got yesterday from the city of Murrieta, where they express the concerns, I think a lot of my cities do in the San Gabriel Valley and others, that there may be some burden as it's passed on to some of the consumers. We know it's going to be. So I wanted more as a supervisor and my fellow board member on my left. But there's got to be a balance there. I think you're right. It's kind of trying to navigate this to the sweet spot. And as we listen, and I listen to all the public comments, pro and con, I think we're trying to arrive at that, and we're getting very close. Couple more things. As I look at the socioeconomic impact, and I've kind of reviewed it, but just some maybe in detail, Michael, because kind of maybe a couple of questions at this point. You know, I read the jobs created. I just think there might be more. And one of the things as you look at that, maybe you can explain where are those jobs created? Are those just the, jobs for new electricians going out to the house or licensed certified people to install those?
That's correct. So things like, the wiring, panel upgrades, things like that in
Okay.
the construction sector.
So as I've done improvements in my house over the years, and I think looking at this and some of the comments made too, I think you're gonna even have more jobs because not only the people, the workers, the service industry, but as you get there, you're not just paying the person to install. You've got the equipment, you got the conduit, you've got that, it's massive, metal or aluminum. Then you've got the wiring, then you've got the parts, the panels, the sub panels. So somebody's got to manufacture those things. So there's gonna be a lot more, I think, in the socioeconomic impact that even bumped up even more. But that may be, I might have missed it. It might be in there, but keep that in mind. Comments. Larry asked questions about the manufacturers. How many are there many U.S. manufacturers left? Are they all foreign, or what percentage do you know?
Most are in the States.
Most in the States, okay. I saw some, as I talked to some of my neighbors, there's Mitsubishi. I've seen a number of Mitsubishis, heat pumps out there. So those are maybe manufactured here, or?
That's correct. Yeah. So if they're a global company overseas, they have their U.S. headquarters here as well
Okay.
as manufacturing. Yeah. A lot of
Okay.
them in the Midwest.
How many of these would be affected by the tariffs currently being pushed at the federal level? Some of these products, just curious.
I don't know if I'm
Manufacturers
totally
that are
up
outside.
on the details of tariffs. However, I will say though, most, again, being manufactured here should not be impacted.
Okay. With regard to we looked at, you just kind of hit health. There's going to be a $25.43 billion benefit to our health. I always ask for pictures and stuff. So people say, remember here during the comments, a couple of times, public comments, they talked about a few dozen adults like ourselves have been educated. I didn't realize what's in natural gas. What's coming. Can you just tell us again? I've tried to kind of research it, but can't. What is the composition of the natural gas that's produced in our basin in Southern California that we're talking about right here? You always hear about methane, different things. And as I've looked around in the nation, there's different compositions. So if you can give us an idea, Mike. And once it's combusted, then what comes out?
Okay. So first off, on the socio side that you were bringing up. So again, the cost, what they do is they'll look at things like, if again, it's a public health benefit, right? So if you have people not having to go to the hospital, people not getting asthma in the doctor visits and all of that stuff, then it becomes a savings. And that's how those numbers get generated. Your question about.
I like those numbers, but what I'm trying to do is make the connection for the normal person. I mean, we're all here always talking about air quality, but the normal person doesn't, they see those big numbers. They don't realize it's the kid in their, the kid I coach or my employee's son who's got asthma. How does that impact them? They see a number, but I want to see the connection. So you tell people it's bad, but I can't picture what's coming out of the pipes that may be leaking in your house. Once you combust things or turn them on, there's a water heater, a dryer, a stove. I tell it's got a pat. What they don't understand. Can you give us a little more?
Yeah, so I can speak in general, like natural gas, it's mostly methane, right? But there are some small trace components and like, including some metals. And so when they're combusted indoors, you get some of this contamination. There's also NOx is generated, obviously, when you burn, like that's a byproduct of combustion. And so nitrous oxide is also a component, and that also has health effects. And so there's a lot of studies now looking at the impacts of combustion within homes and the detrimental health effects associated with it.
Okay, thank you very much. That's important. If you just emphasize that a little more, it's at the smaller level. So Larry, I like the way everything's going. I'm with you, and I'll continue to listen. So please, we're going to listen very closely to your comments today, but really focus on, don't be an extremist. Try to get us. We've had 2 revisions since the last meeting. We had 2 revisions on reporting. You know, have to be serial numbers, that's a revision, and a 50% reduction in one of the mitigation fees on heaters. So this has evolved a lot over these several months, but talk to us about that because there may be other minor revisions, but I like the direction. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you very much, Chair Delgado.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree that I think the rule itself, or all of it, is in a good shape. I strive for everybody being a little unhappy in my policymaking, so I think that's good. The only question that I continue to have is not so much on the fee itself, because I'm good with where it is. It's for the bad actors. It's people who are not in non-compliance and continue to be. Like, that's the only one where I am open to taking a look at that, but I'd love to hear public comment. We have 23 speakers online. So if you don't mind, Chair, if we could move to that so we can hear a little bit about people's thoughts on the bad actors, the non-compliance fee. That's the one that I'm still a little open on.
Thank you very much. We'll
I also want to hear from the community. I really do, and see the numbers. But
we are going to go into public comment right now.
But I would like to hear from the staff on what I said, because with all due respect, I'm not happy in the direction that this is going. I keep stating this has been watered down tremendously, and I'm also sort of feel that this is a way to, everybody's saying that not everybody's going to be happy, but we are still headed in the wrong direction if we don't address the folks that are doing the non-compliance. Like, that's the issue that I at least want us to consider increasing the fees for. So I would like staff to respond to my proposal of looking at what the EJ community has proposed. I don't want us to move on till I hear from the staff.
Staff, would you like to respond? We have 80 public speakers.
I can probably respond very quickly. I just want to be clear that the over the target mitigation fee is not a compliance penalty. That is an option that's built into the rule. The compliance aspect of the rule is if the manufacturers aren't reporting to us and those types of provisions. So I just wanted to make that clarification. Also, just the other point is that the rule is targeted to get about 6 tons per day, not 2.1 tons per day. So just to that point of clarification. But we hear, the comments in regards to the mitigation fees. We're listening to all the other comments. We'll listen to all the comments that we received today.
Okay, I don't think that really answered or addressed my comments, but we'll hear from the public.
Well, personally, I'm happy where the fees are right now, so I'm not looking at raising them any further. We have 25 people online who want to speak, and we have 40 in-house.
We have 19 blue card or requests to speak in-house.
19 in-house and 25 online.
I have some here in the office as well.
How many? How many, Chair?
Just one. Somebody had to leave already.
So we've got 45 who want to speak.
And you have one here in Howell Administration, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Without objection, we'll limit everyone to 1 minute so that we can get this done. That's any major objection to that? Seeing none, let's go to public comment.
Do you want to close the queue?
Yeah, the queue's closed.
Okay.
How many have we got? I don't know who
It's at 32 and we'll mark where the last person is.
okay. That's 50 minutes, close to over an hour we'll be here still for public comment. Is there any one who wants to reduce that any further? 1 minute's okay? All right. Let's go to the in-house here, public comment, if you'd take care of that.
Yes, Chair. I will be naming two names at once if the second person could come down to move things along. Our first speaker is Dave Cafaro, followed by Larry Black.
Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Dave Caparo. I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Greater Irvine Chamber of Commerce. And in the spirit of myth versus fact, we encourage staff to broaden their lens on data points. We think it would be beneficial to all concerned. Specifically, the nonprofit and business community is in a very fragile economic state in our county and our state. And that's after years of significant inflation, increased regulatory burdens, and now long-term uncertainty coming from U.S. trade policy. You may have seen Fed Policy Chair Jerome Powell yesterday saying that we expect increased inflation for a longer term. The proposed rules still ban certain appliances covered by the EPCA, and we believe that that will elevate operating costs. We think that this, both 1111 and 1121 overlook economically viable consumer.
Thank you for your comments.
Next is Larry Black, followed by Lacey Schoen and Tanya Hune.
For come before you today and committee members. I am a citizen here, a housing provider, a small business owner, and I see there's in this, I am opposed to the rule in its current stage. In both rules, I think it needs to be looked out much closer and refined. It seems like we go with the carrot versus the stick on here. And I think we should look at the carrot and the incentives to do it, but not the penalties. This rule as it stands as a housing provider is going to exacerbate the inventory issue that we have. I can see the cost and burden and with our housing providers passing this on to the tenants, the underserved individuals usually, and most of these housing providers are mom and pop housing providers. This is going to affect them considerably.
Thank you.
Next up is Lacey Schoen, followed by Tanya Hune and Fernando Gaitan.
Good morning. My name is Lacey Shane. I am the CEO of the Brea Chamber of Commerce, representing 300 businesses and over 30,000 employees of those businesses. We're encouraging a no vote on the adoption of these amended rules, whether it's the previous plan or the 90% ban. The negative impacts on business and our residents is detrimental. It disproportionately impacts an already struggling small business community. It'll devastate small businesses that manufacture, sell, and install with natural gas appliances and would impose additional burdens that could lead to losses and even business closures. And additionally, limiting residents and businesses to only electrical is unsafe because limitations of our electrical grid. Emergency and high-use blackouts can often be dangerous, not only for the elderly and health compromised citizens who might.
Thank you.
Next is Tanya Hune, followed by Fernando Gaitan and Ayn Kratian.
Good morning. I just wanted to oppose this as well. Many businesses are forced to stop selling gas appliances, and the prices for alternatives will likely increase. And this cost of replacing these existing appliances with electric alternatives could really affect those who are in low income and middle income households. I myself would be detrimental to my family to have to replace or, because I can't even maintain my electric by adding a new appliance. I'm not even allowed to get a house fan right now because I'd have to update all my electrical in the house, the new stuff. And although that may benefit jobs in that community, we're also losing jobs on the gas side as well. So I definitely do think that we need to really look at this a little bit more extensively on that area. Thank you.
Next speaker is Fernando Gaitan, followed by Ayn Kratian and David Martinez.
Good morning, Fernando Gaitan with Earth Justice. We need zero NOx rules for these appliances, water heaters and furnaces. We've known that for some time. I'm here to uplift the suggestion, the request from Board Member Padilla Campos. It's a common sense approach, providing guardrails for this rule so that the alternative compliance pathway does not become the default and does not lead to status quo. We need a compliance fee that actually shows a fee that will move manufacturers in the right direction and an opportunity to course correct if they're not meeting targets. And so I strongly encourage you to look at that as an alternative to making this rule stronger. And thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Ayn Kratian, followed by David Martinez and Tim Shaw.
Thank you. I'm Creation with Climate Action Campaign. We support an accelerated transition to zero emission non-polluting appliances, including the higher mitigation fees that would be necessary to support community health goals. I wanted to just thank the staff for the socioeconomic benefits, which are truly overwhelming, provided in your report today. Also, to underscore recent reports from the California Energy Commission, which show that 87.65% of residential new construction line extension requests made in 2023 by builders were electric only in SDG&E territory. So sort of supporting what we're hearing from staff is that, and that's because electric is lower cost and is truly the future. And so why would we want to saddle residents with the costs of maintaining and paying for a fuel that is on its way out when we know that the future is here? So thank you.
Next speaker is David Martinez, followed by Tim Shaw and Obed Leon.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is David Martinez. I'm with Climate Action Campaign and an Orange County resident. I'm here to ask that you support strengthening these clean air rules. Rules that cut air pollution from gas appliances will improve air quality and save lives. Our current levels of air pollution cause thousands of asthma attacks, billions in health costs, and hundreds of premature deaths. But adopting strong rules can change that. That's why I'm asking that the rules be amended to create a tiered mitigation fee system. This will encourage compliance. This will possibly get more funding to go zero, and those that are in extreme non-compliance will pay more. Please strengthen these rules and keep your community healthy. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tim Shaw, followed by Obed Leon and Bill Gilbertson.
Good morning. My name is Tim Shaw. I'm the Government Affairs Director for both the Tri-Counties and Pacific West Association of Realtors. We are fighting the battle out there every day on housing affordability, really, or lack thereof. And make no mistake, fees on things like furnaces, water heaters, et cetera, do get passed on. And it's obviously the heaviest burden on those who can least afford an additional fee. So we are very concerned about adding at all to the cost of housing, which this proposal would do. So we would encourage a no vote. Thank you.
Next speaker is Obed Leon, followed by Bill Gilbertson and Hadley Nolan.
Hello. First of all, I want to thank the AQMD staff members and board members. I'm a fellow, environmental justice fellow with Climate Action Campaign at Fulton College. I am a resident of Anaheim. I came here to say that I support these rules, to know that my city where I live is one of the most affected by air pollution. I believe that these rules will protect us, our health, and most importantly, our future. Thank you.
Next speaker is Bill Gilbertson, followed by Hadley Nolan and Francis Yang.
Hello, good morning. My name is Bill Gilbertson. I am the president of Local 132 Utility Workers Union of America. I represent about 3,000 plus members that work for SoCalGas that represent the greater part of California. I'm here to comment on the socio impact of and express our opposition to these rules. the staff saying that this will be creating jobs. I believe this will be taking jobs from our members, from our local that work for SoCalGas. The input of electric appliances will take away from the input of natural gas appliances, will take away our jobs that service those appliances and keep the safe and reliable energy in the homes of California. And I believe that will affect us long-term, and then the cost will be put on to our members, and our members are also consumers. Thank you.
Next speaker is Hadley Nolan, followed by Francis Yang and Yu Shen.
Good morning. My name is Hadley Nolan with SoCalGas, and I am here today to recommend that the committee not move the proposed amendments forward for a vote at the June governing board meeting. These rules are simply not affordable. They require high upfront capital costs, and because residential electricity prices are on average 5 times more expensive than natural gas prices, consumers could expect to see higher monthly energy bills for the first few years. Also, staff's analysis shows lifetime utility bill savings, but that assumes residential electricity prices flatline after 2026 and gas prices double. For context, residential electricity prices have increased 38% over the last 10 years, while gas prices have decreased by 8%. Finally, SoCalGas continues to have legal concerns with the rules as drafted. CARB withdrew the Bay Area zero-emission appliance rules from the SIP. If CARB does not submit these rules to EPA as part of the SIP, or they are rejected by EPA, South Coast will not receive SIP credit for these rules. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Next speaker is Francis Yang, followed by Yu Shen and Jennifer Cardenas.
Good morning. My name is Francis. I'm a volunteer with the Sierra Club. I'm here to comment on this rule. I really thought that we were going to get past this hump, that we were going to meet our federal attainment rules, because we all know heat pumps need to be part of the solution. I know it's been really hard, and I want to thank staff and the board for working so vigilantly on this rule. I'm appalled that a misinformation campaign has brought us so far from what this rule needs to do to protect everyday communities from the appliances that are poisoning us in our own homes. I really urge this board to continue to push hard on these rules, to strengthen it as much as we can and avoid any misinformation that actually does more damage than good. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Yu Shen, followed by Jennifer Cardenas and Margie Hills.
Good morning, board members. My name is Yue Shen, and I live in West LA. The city of Los Angeles, where I reside, recently passed a resolution to support these rules. This is the 4th time I'm back here at the station resource meeting to voice my support for you to finally pass the rules 1121. I also want to just further echo some of the points made about having the tiered fee by establishing the tiered fees as exactly the measure to combat some of the arguments around passing down the cost onto consumers. Again, thank you for your time. I encourage you to pass the rules with no further delay and consider the amendment.
Next speaker is Jennifer Cardenas, followed by Margie Hills and Delena Leon.
It's still morning. So good morning, board members. I'm Jennifer. I'm with the Sierra Club. I encourage you to support Rule 1121. I want to say thank you to the staff for all the work you have done. And earlier today at the Mobile Source Committee, we had 2 really great presentations. One of them had visuals. It's showing you a house. It's telling you that it has one of the sources that emits NOx that is impacting our ozone layer. You had another presentation that told you the strategy to attain 2015 8-hour ozone standards is a heat pump. It says that one of the things you're going to do is rely on an economic-wide transition to zero-emission technologies whenever feasible. That is now. You have that opportunity in June to vote. And according to all the research your amazing team has done, it means you're going to pass these because you have everything for the community that can make sure they could.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Margie Hills, followed by Delena Leon and Jesse Parks.
Good morning. My name is Margie Hills, and I'm the vice chair of the Angeles chapter of the Sierra Club. We support the updates to rules 1111 and 1121, However, I recently attended an Anaheim City Council meeting where they passed a resolution against the updated rules due to concerns about the installation costs for their constituents. I know there's been a lot of outreach, but I feel a better explanation and/or presentation on the affordability issue and the recent rule modifications would have made a difference and have been very useful to them. Thank you.
Next speaker is Elena Leon, followed by Jesse Parks and Mike Liarakos.
Hello, my name is Dali Neff, and I'm a frontline community member in the Inland Empire. I know my Fontana mayor has opposed this rule, but to be honest, she is the same representative that has allowed warehouses next to our schools and other sensitive receptors. I'm here in support of you all to finally pass Rules 1111 and 1121 with no further delays. Don't allow polluters to weaponize low-wealth communities when the quality crisis in Southern California disproportionately impacts communities of color. You can do what my representative has not done for my community, and that is ensure our air quality improves. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jesse Parks, followed by Mike Liarakos and Bina Kakria.
Hello, my name is Jesse Parks. I live in Riverside and work in San Bernardino, two cities that unfortunately face some of the most severe air quality issues in the country. I'm here to express my unwavering support for immediate implementation of Rules 1111 and 1121 without further delays. Additionally, I urge this board to pass amendments that will enhance the strength and fairness and effectiveness of these rules. Despite South Coast AQMD staff compromising to the fossil fuel industry's demands by diluting language, extending timelines, and scaling back standards, the same industry opponents remain unsatisfied. You might be asking why. The answer lies in their business model, which relies on polluting appliances and perpetuates the outdated status quo. Their persistent efforts to obstruct clean air protections are rooted in profit rather than public health, and that's unacceptable. Therefore, I'm calling for the simple and common sense amendment, the creation of a tiered mitigation fees on polluting appliances and escalate the proportion to the extent of noncompliance. These funds should be utilized to expand.
Next speaker is Mike Liarakos, followed by Bina Kakria, who will be our last in-house speaker.
I am Mike Liarakis, the CEO of Abound Food Care. I work across the state to reduce food waste that goes into landfills, creating a methane gas. I also work to help food banks and the nonprofit agency feed those that are suffering from food insecurity, a symptom of poverty. I want to share with you that at this particular point, there's a dramatic spike in those individuals that are relying on the nonprofit network. And I'm imploring you to consider that there are still likely to be cost increases associated with this and the impact it will have on individuals and families. And relevant to the Mitsubishi model or example earlier, only a portion of those units are produced in the US and the parts are still produced overseas, meaning tariffs are still a factor. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for moving this along. Our last in-house speaker is Bina Kakria.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to express our views here. I am a small business owner, and I'm also a resident of Phillips Ranch. I ask that you oppose the amended rules 1111 and 1121. Simply, we just can't afford them. Further, I suggest that you should instead encourage gas appliances to have lower emissions, not charge consumers more for choosing gas. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That completes the in-house. We'll go now to Chair Delgado. You have someone?
Yes, I'll share my screen now.
Hi, Michael Rockmess, U.S. Green Building Council, California. A transition to zero emission space and water heating is a very important step for clean air in our region, but we are very disappointed by the compromises that were made in this rule in both the total emissions reductions and the delay in achieving those emissions reductions. This rule is calculated to reduce 6 tons per day of NOx emissions, but in 2060. Every time you say 6 tons, I reflect on how old I will be in 2060. We've asked that the rule be made more ambitious in order to have a more significant impact on our health and air quality. It seems like that's not necessarily going to happen, but a common sense and vital step that you can take to ensure the rule works is to put in place Board Member Padilla Campos's request for an enforcement mechanism for sales of polluting equipment above the target. What has been proposed is tiered enforcement based on how far off the target the manufacturer is. This won't have any impact on manufacturers.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we'll go to Supervisor Mitchell. You have someone? Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Good morning, Chair McAllen, Board. Thank you. Pete Marsh, volunteer with the U.S. Green Building Council. Business School 101 teaches us as business leaders that we should be assessing the future environment. That future environment is very clear. Globally, our economy needs to phase down gas and coal and oil by 90% over the next 30 decades. We know that SoCal Gas is fueling much of this opposition in an attempt to hang on. But any business that's supporting or planning to install a natural gas asset this year, next decade, is installing an asset that's going to become stranded well before its expected service life. And by advocating for these, we're also imposing that same risk on all of the building owners that we purport to support. Economics say we need to rapidly transition to electric. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Now we'll go to online. Would you like to?
Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to. Our first speaker is Clint Olivier. Clint, go ahead, please. You're muted. You got 1 minute. Clint, you're still muted. Clint, we'll come back to you. Next speaker is Michael Corbett. Michael, go ahead, please.
Good morning. My name is Mike Corbett with Bradford White Corporation. We are a leading manufacturer of water heater products manufacturing in Middleville, Michigan. At the previous Stationary Source Committee meeting, we proposed an alternative flat fee schedule for manufacturers at an incremental value over the proposed base fee. The base fee and over target fee with related reporting requirements is simply not manageable for manufacturers. A flat fee would make administration manageable for manufacturers, provide more predictable funding for the Go Zero program, and balance affordability while encouraging consumers to purchase zero NOx product. The district demonstrated success using a single mitigation fee to encourage the purchase of ultra-low NOx and zero NOx furnaces through the Clean Air Furnace program. Letters and public statements from manufacturers in support of this approach have been filed, including a letter from AHRI, who represents more than 330 manufacturers. In closing, we encourage the district to consider our alternative proposal so the industry and the district can proceed forward with manageable solutions to transition the market to zero NOx solutions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Clint, go ahead, please. Clint Olivier, you're muted again.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Clint Olivier. I'm the CEO of the Central Valley Business Federation, or BizFed, a grassroots alliance of over 75 organizations representing 30,000 employers and 400,000 employees across California's Central Valley. Many of them also operate in your region. We strongly oppose proposed amended rules 1111 and 1121. These rules would place major financial burdens on businesses, homeowners, and renters, especially those already struggling for minimal environmental gain. We respectfully urge you to oppose these rules and delay further action. Thank you all.
Thanks, Clint. Next speaker is Bill Lamar. Welcome, Bill.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Bill Lamar with the California Alliance of Small Business Associations. Despite the many changes made to these rules, we're still concerned that small businesses like gas stations, convenience stores, dry cleaners, automotive repair shops, restaurants, manufacturers, and most of the public are still unaware of this rulemaking because staff refuses to use mass media resources that would reach and inform them. We're also concerned that a small business analysis was not conducted in the draft socioeconomic assessment because these rules don't apply to facilities. However, the rules state that while they apply primarily to residences, they don't exempt facilities or mobile homes or small businesses. As such, we'd like to see a small business analysis done. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next speaker is Chris Chavez. Chris?
Yes, Chris Chavez, Coalition for Clean Air. We continue to support the proposed amendments to Rule 1111 and 1121. We also echo the call to have a tiered fee structure to ensure that manufacturers that grossly violate the sales target pay more. Let's be clear. We are talking about a $50 to $100 fee you may encounter every 20 years. That's it. All this does is set sales targets for manufacturers that are in line with current market projections and a de minimis fee to help fund incentive program. There's no ban. There's no requirement to upgrade. If you're going bankrupt over a tiny fee, the problem may be you, just to be clear. It's beyond past time to stop indulging disinformation and bad faith tactics. If this district can't even pass this weekend rule, which may, questionable how much it'll be able to achieve, it really bodes poorly for air quality in Southern California and public health. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Next speaker, Nika Weber.
Hi, my name is Annika, and I'm a resident of Claremont, California with the Climate Action Campaign. I support, but I am dismayed that the weekend rules will fail to achieve their goals due to gas industry interests. I ask that you add the tiered noncompliance penalty structure to ensure that this rule will actually protect our safety. I love and care for LA, and young people like me continue to face the risk of lung disease. In the basin, polluting appliances generate more smog-forming nitrogen oxide pollution than power plants. Reeling from the disastrous LA fires this winter, please remember your responsibility to the families and workers who live, learn, and grow in Southern California. Thank you.
Thanks, Annika. Next is Jamie or Jaime. Go ahead, please.
Madam Chair and members of the board, my name is Lucy Reed, and I'm a resident of Claremont, California. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. I'm incredibly disappointed that proposed rules 1111 and 1121 regarding clean air have been gutted, and I'm worried that they will not have anywhere near the impact we need on emission reductions. I'm asking that you strengthen the rules by adding a tiered noncompliance penalty structure to ensure that this rule will have a meaningful impact on our air quality. It is disappointing to witness the gas industry succeed in their dilution of these policies, and I ask that you recenter the impacted communities at the heart of these clean air rules. I would like to remind the board that air entangles us all. Within the large region of the South Coast, communities are linked most intimately by their exchange of air, an exchange that is inevitable and unavoidable, but also has the ability to unite us. As a Claremont resident and in solidarity with other communities throughout the South Coast District, I ask you to please strengthen Rules 1111 and 1121.
Thank you. Next speaker has a phone number ending in 821. Go ahead. You're muted. A phone number ending 821.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I just want to bring up three small points. First of all, consumers. Obviously, we're not sure what the total impact is going to be to consumers at this point. There seem to be a lot of big question marks. Most people, when we're talking about various parts of LA City, LA County, and the surrounding areas, we're dealing with high poverty indexes. So we have to make sure that manufacturers and that bureaucracy doesn't turn a blind eye to what is inevitably 100% going to result in a high increase for the cost of utilities and every other single good that goes into the life of the daily consumer. Second, labor. It's disingenuous to say that we're going to gain jobs when there's going to be an equal amount of jobs lost. And whether or not people think that the various companies that are involved don't have a right to make an objection to what's going to end up happening to their industry, that's wrong. You shouldn't silence people just because you disagree with them. Thirdly, statistical failures. No serial tracking, 1% to 3% interest, and then numbers that are not taking into account tariffs. Come on. The public wants to be able to buy into something, but if you're using the numbers that we obviously know are.
Thank you. Next speaker is Gust. Gus, go ahead, please. GUST.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Gus Torres, and I'm speaking on behalf of UA Local 250 pipe fitters, welders, and apprentices. Our 6,700 members, residents, and local community will be severely impacted by the proposed amendments to Rules 1111 and 1121. Our union brothers and sisters see the long-term impacts and burdens that will come from these amendments and need you to see them too. There are a million residents and that will be negatively impacted by these such changes, and we cannot stand while it happens. The unintended consequences need to be addressed. Please consider our residents and our members and reject these amendments. Thank you for your time. Happy Easter weekend and God bless.
Thank you, Gus. Next is Drew's iPhone.
Hi, this is Drew Bursey. I'm the Executive Director for the Antelope Valley Economic Development and Growth Enterprise. We oppose adoption of these rules for many of the reasons previously stated. Housing continues to be the lack of housing continues to be a crisis in California. Rules like this make it much more difficult to meet our housing needs through harming mom and pop renters, affecting future development, increasing costs all around. We respectfully urge you to reject these rules.
Thank you. Next speaker is Dan Thompson. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, Mike, this is Dan Thompson with Building Doctors. Mike came out to one of our job sites last week with a few of the other people to look to see how we installed a heat pump water heater and a heat pump HVAC system. Yeah, the big thing is I'm here to dispel these lies and myths coming from the gas company and other folks. Nobody is saying that they're going to come to your door and yank your gas furnace out immediately. What this is when it dies, when it breaks, which they all do, instead of going back and using polluting technology, let's look to the future and use these heat pump technology. They're more efficient. They're better indoor air quality and outdoor air quality. That's what this whole thing is. It's not that big of a fee. And with the training of the installers, it's the absolute right way to do. This is such a ridiculous thing. Anybody that wants to come to see how we install one of these things, you're more than welcome to come on one of our job sites. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan, for your time. Next is Sydney's iPad. Go ahead, Sydney.
Hi, my name is Sydney. First of all, I want to address when you guys said no one's happy with this rule, but I want to bring up, think about how unhappy we will be when more of our loved ones die from being in a climate-stricken natural disaster. Think about how unhappy we will be when we see fires again, like what happened in LA, destroying communities, destroying people's property, and claiming lives. Think about how unhappy we will be when our children have to suffer countless asthma attacks due to pollution, when families have to pay skyrocketing healthcare cost bills due to increasing doctor's appointments and so on. We need to come to a conclusion, a good compromise that will protect the future and our planet and help people who are struggling and help people transition from dirty fossil fuels to cleaner jobs. Please pass 1111 and 1121 with no further delays, because the more
Thank you. Next speaker is Dylan.
Hello, members of the South Coast Air Quality Management District Stationary Sources Group. My name is Dylan Plummer, and I'm a campaign advisor for the Sierra Club's National Building Decarbonization Campaign. On behalf of our tens of thousands of members in your jurisdiction, I'm testifying today to urge you to pass the rules with amendments to ensure accountability from bad actors who might go far out of compliance without additional guardrails. Specifically, I want to voice our support for a tiered non-compliance fee that increases penalties on manufacturers if they actively flout the sales targets and go far beyond just minimal non-compliance. And this is a common sense guardrail to ensure that we get maximum pollution reduction from this fee that will not raise costs for consumers. Please strengthen these rules and pass them in June. Thank you for your consideration.
Thanks, Dylan. Next speaker, phone number ending in 355. You're muted.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Joshua Gastalum, committee members and community. I'm speaking as a South Coast resident. First, I would like to address the fact that there seems to be some simple cognitive issues with the practical application of the amendments being proposed, at least in the initial period of the application. For example, the proposed amendments denying consumer choice of affordable appliances are not cost effective. However, I would like to dive a little deeper into the actual financial implications of the consumer of what is being proposed. Cost effectiveness is the cost of a control measure relative to the amount of emission it reduces. Cost effectiveness values for proposed rules are compared to the threshold of 383,000 per ton of nitrous oxide reduced that was set by 2022 Air Quality Management Plan. If a control measure costs more than that per ton of nitrous oxide, it will remove the control measure since deemed not cost effective. Using the cost effectiveness calculation, switching from
Thank you. Next speaker is Harvey Etter. Harvey, go ahead, please. Harvey, you're on mute.
Hello, am I being heard?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, first of all, I'm incorporating by reference the study that we did on the low-income solar equity project 40 years ago with the PUC. To get equity, and that's a big problem in our society and our culture, okay? We did the Solar New Deal in the 16 plan. Y'all never evaluated, CARB never evaluated,
Chair,
EPA
please
never
limit your
evaluated.
comments to this item.
Shot
Thank
program.
you.
Thank you, Harvey. Can you limit your comments to this item? You got a few more seconds. Elsie, go ahead, please.
Hello. Good afternoon, members of the South Coast AQMD Stationary Source Committee. My name is Elsie Sable, and I'm a recent resident of Claremont, California. I'm here to ask you to strengthen Rule 1111 and 1121 for clean air and add tiered fees for non-compliant manufacturers of household appliances. I recently moved here from Washington State for my education. Though I'm thrilled to live in this beautiful place, my family is seriously concerned for my health. The South Coast region has famously poor air quality, and this poses a serious risk for my well-being. Almost every time I call my family, they ask me about the air quality, and every time my answer is that it's poor, but there's really nothing I can do about it. But you all can do something about it. In approving this rule, you'd be lowering my personal risk for lung cancer, respiratory infections, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Once again, I ask you to approve and strengthen Rules 1111 and 1121.
Thanks, Elsie. Next is Jed Holtzman. Jed?
Thank you so much, Chair and members. Jed Holtzman from RMI. I want to speak to Supervisor Hagman's earlier concern about energy bills. We have a new analysis being published on Wednesday where we model the change in energy costs for a typical single-family home with AC that installs a high-efficiency heat pump and heat pump water heater, looking at each climate zone and utility service territory. And we found that such households in all 4 South Coast counties save money on energy bills when making this transition. Happy to share that when published. We respectfully request that the committee consider a key change to ensure the novel sales target approach that staff has integrated into these rule proposals can be successful at achieving the emissions reductions that the air basin requires. By structuring the proposed over-target mitigation fee in tiers based on the extent to which sales targets are missed, the Air District can establish an essential guardrail against uncontrolled deviation from its projected emissions reductions. Staff highlights the remaining 6 tons per day of NOx reductions these rules will get and the huge health benefits, but that will not happen without this non-compliance.
Next is Danielle Hawley. Danielle, go ahead, please.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Danielle Hawley, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Fontana Chamber of Commerce. I'm here today on behalf of our organization and the hundreds of small business members we represent to express our strong opposition to the proposed implementation of Rules 1111 and 1112. These rules, if enacted on the current timeline, potentially as soon as 2026, will have sweeping impacts on the 17 million residents of Southern California. We are especially concerned about how these rules will marginalize low-income communities and small rental properties by imposing additional unnecessary costs. These burdens will be felt most by those who can least afford them. As a Fontana resident and community leader, I see firsthand how these regulations will disproportionately impact our local small businesses. Many are already struggling to survive under the weight of California's high cost of doing business. Imposing more regulations without adequate support or flexibility will only drive more of them out of our region or out of business entirely. We respectfully urge the committee and the board to reconsider the timeline and implementation of these rules.
Thank you. Next is Sterling Scott with Boys Republic. Sterling, go ahead, please.
Hello, Sterling Scott from Boys Republic.
We are a private nonprofit organization, which, when full, we have 94 beds for at-risk juvenile boys and girls. We would find this a huge socioeconomic impact, would have a negative or an extreme hardship for us and our families that we work with. We understand that there is some pushback on the cost, but I can speak personally. In I live in the city of Los Angeles. I made the switch over in a small 500 bedroom or 500 square foot residential cottage that I rent out, and it cost about $9,000 to make the transition from a gas heater to a mini splitter, which was electric. So I think it would have a negative impact on us if we were forced to have to transfer over to all electric with all of our facilities. We have dozens of buildings, vocational classrooms, food service buildings, and mental health facilities that would have a huge impact on us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Omri Gusenhoven.
Good afternoon. My name is Amory Gusanovan, and I'm a student in Claremont, California. I'm here to give my concerns about our capacity to achieve the carbon emissions reductions necessary to secure the safety and health of our community under our current policy enforcements of Rules 1111 and 1121. As someone whose hometown was impacted by the smog from the Canadian wildfires in 2023, I've seen the detrimental health effects that air pollution can cause, especially in our most vulnerable populations. And I'm here today to emphasize the importance of strengthening these rules to motivate companies to move towards reducing their pollution output and promote the equity and safety of our communities. It's disheartening to hear how the gas industry is subverting your legal obligations to emissions reductions and your responsibility to the voices and well-being of the people who have trusted you to protect them. People should not have to worry about being harmed by the essential amenities and the safety of their own homes. The current penalty structure is not severe enough to effectuate adequate change, and I compel you to place a tiered non-compliance penalty structure that will penalize offenders to degrees of violation so the gas industry is accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Marvin. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning. Chair and members of the public, Marvin Norman, San Bernardino resident, CCAJ. I'm here also to recommend that the board move forward and pass these rules. I remember we were there about 6 months ago at this point where the board decided to delay the rule following, and so it's been a interesting time seeing that the rule has already changed, and yet the same arguments that were being used against it at that time are still being used now. And we had the comment period today flooded with people talking about how it's going to kill small businesses. Yet this is, as the AQMD has already made clear many times, this is not a business rule at all. It's all about residential. So it'd be good if the opposition, if they're would quit while they're ahead and understand when they've already outplayed they're going on with arguments that were already addressed and aren't even relevant. And so it's good to see that it's finally moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mrs. Richards Class.
Hi, I'm a teacher. You can tell that of elementary students. My name is Rhonda Plank Richard. I'm an elementary teacher in the West San Fernando Valley, and I see up close how the high heat here and the poor air quality harms my students, especially my students with asthma, but degrades the health of all of us. The fires have made it worse, of course. I support a transition, the fastest possible transition to zero emission appliances, because this is one possible solution and sorely needed. I heard that one of the board members was wondering about the indoor air quality that my students might be experiencing with natural gas. Most recent studies, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, formaldehyde, benzene, and the particulate matter. It's nasty stuff inside the kitchens and homes of our children. I don't understand why we're delaying this at all, and I'm so frustrated that we're watering down the rules to the point that they will likely fail.
Thank you, Mrs. Richards. Next speaker is Wynn Tucker. Wynn, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Wynn Tucker, Director of Policy and Innovation at the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative. Thank you to the committee and the staff. I also wanted to speak to Councilmember Cacciotti's question about the health impacts of natural gas. I'm grateful to the previous commenter for laying those health impacts out there, because there's more than we have time to address, but studies have found carcinogens like benzene, formaldehyde, and natural gas, the risk of carbon monoxide poisoning. And then, of course, the impact of NOx emissions on mortality, asthma, so many health outcomes, which is why the socioeconomic report prepared by staff shows such significant public health benefits, both in terms of the human outcomes as well as many billions of dollars of benefits. So ensuring that these rules actually achieve the intended NOx reductions is absolutely critical. And the tiered non-compliance fees discussed by Board Member Padilla-Campos would create a very effective mechanism to ensure the success of this program. I thank you again for your continued work and attention to this. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Wayne. Next speaker is iPhone for Scott. iPhone, go ahead. Or Scott, whoever it is. You're muted.
Okay, I unmuted. Thank you for taking my call. I just had a concern about the natural gas power plants used for electricity generation from big power companies in the region. I've read that they can emit up to 100 tons per year, and these rules that we're discussing, they seem to be just trying to change the outlet point of where these emissions come from and taking it out of some residential houses, only to emit more from these other large generators due to the extra power they're going to have to make to power whatever new electric appliances instead. And I just feel that the overall choices of the consumer should be based off of market driven reasons, and not municipalities stepping in and over regulating and making the changes based off of costs. And the other point is reliability issues. I've never had a gas outage, but I've had plenty of electricity outages. So when it's cold, I would like my heater to make.
Thank you. Next speaker is DJ Merritt. DJ, go ahead.
Yes, I'm an environmental scientist named Dr. David Merritt. I'm a long-term resident of Riverside, and I'm speaking in favor of the immediate adoption of these two rules. Please strengthen these two rules with a tiered non-compliance enforcement structure, which has been described by others. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Greg Lewis. Greg.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Greg Lewis. I'm with the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local 761. The proposed amendment rules 1111 and 1121 will affect our local and our communities in serious ways. Working families such as my own and our members will face financial hardships both from a consumer side as well as through our livelihoods, what we do for work. Millions of residents within the jurisdiction will have to replace affected units and take on yet another financial burden. Please think about our residents and our local small businesses that will be affected by these changes when you vote on this matter. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Next speaker is Tony Cerna. Tony, go ahead.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to comment. This is Tony Cerna, Deputy Policy Director for Evergreen Action, here to voice my support for Rules 1111 and 1121, and my support for a tiered non-compliance fee to provide more incentive for manufacturers who are significantly out of compliance with sales targets in this policy. We need to have a policy that will quickly reduce the emissions from heating equipment to clean our air and improve our health. I'd also like to note that many of the chambers of commerce in Southern California testifying today receive a large portion of their funding from SoCal Gas, and that SoCal Gas gets their funding for lobbying and advocacy from ratepayers. And so they're using ratepayer money to protect their profits and to maintain the status quo that is polluting our health and our environment. So thank you very much for supporting Rules 1111 and 1121. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Next speaker, Rita Loof.
Good afternoon, Rita Louv, Director of Environmental Affairs for Radtech International. Our business have already voluntarily electrified their manufacturing with no credit whatsoever from the district. The staff analysis ignores the increase of emissions that would result during power outages when users of electrical equipment have to use diesel or gasoline power generators in order to heat space and or water. Some of our businesses are already operating at maximum electrical load, and the requirement will mean electrical upgrades and waiting in line for city permits. So we need relief for manufacturing that has already converted to electric equipment and provided emission reductions much more than those emitted by water and space heaters. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Next speaker is Laura with CBE.
Hello, my name is Laura. I'm from Communities for a Better Environment. I appreciate Board Member Badia Campos's comments and requests and encourage the staff and board to follow her suggestion because we need a compliance fee that moves manufacturers in the right direction. In our previous letters, we've shared, since staff has high concerns about impacting low-income folks, that they should incorporate language that bars the cost of this equipment to get passed down to tenants and provide and also encourage tenants protections. They're not uncommon. You know, the CEC included that it's involved in tech. So there are examples where local government or government has supported tenants in ensuring that they will not be impacted by these changes. We're concerned that the dilution of the amendments in the two most recent proposals jeopardizes the intended health and environmental benefits. I urge you to prioritize clean air and health over industry interests and amend the rules to prioritize vulnerable communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Next speaker is Justin Walters.
Good morning. My name is Justin Walters, and I'm a representative of UA Local 78. And I'm calling in today to speak up about the impacts that come from amendments to Rule 111 and Rule 1121. There are a number of union brothers and sisters, such as myself, who will be severely impacted if these amendments are put into place. The impacts on our local and state economy will have long-term effects that need to be considered. Please reject these amendments that are bad for the economy and that are bad for Californians. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Last speaker is Alexander Kim.
Good afternoon, board members. This is Alex Kim, VP of Asians and Energy and Board Secretary of the Asian Business Association of Orange County, representing minority and first-generation immigrant-owned small businesses. While we applaud the recent amendment changes in the rules, the fact of forcing manufacturers to add any additional fees will only be passed on to our small business and residents. Our members are still reeling from the higher cost of doing business with increased wages, insurance, inflation, and even the proposed higher tariff costs will really affect us. We urge the board not to add any fees to natural gas heating equipment. Let's also use a carrot incentive model and not a stick punitive model, by providing large rebate incentives to small businesses and encourage and help offset the high retrofit costs of new heat pumps and additional cost reductions for the high cost of electric use that are on the average 5 times more than the average compared to natural gas. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. That's the last public speaker. Without objection, we'll move on to our written reports. Is there any need to have any presentation on those 3 written reports? Seeing none, we will move on to other business. Any other business need to talk about? Seeing none, this is our public comment for items not on the agenda. If you have any public comments, please sign up now. We got Patty Senecal. 1 minute.
Yes, thank you. My comment has to do with the proposed amendments for PAR 301, Section AA. WISP has already submitted a letter to the board on April 3rd. This rule is moving very fast. There's a lot of high cost in this rule. We've had a couple meetings with staff, but we would like to stick with our recommendation, and that is to bifurcate and let us work through the 1180 fees. We find the fees are excessive. We're looking at an increase rule for 1180 of O&M cost from 4.7 million per year to now 6.6, a 42% increase, or 20 million would be the increase, over a 3-year period. So we're working with staff, but we have more collaboration that we need to do and justification of these new rates. So I'd like to recommend this rule be bifurcated, moved ahead with the CPI, and I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Patty. Next, we have Juan De Lara.
Hi, how are you? Good morning. Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Juan, and I'm a worried resident of Los Angeles. I want to speak up against these proposed rules. There's going to be a huge impact on the working families like mine and my small businesses in our region.
It sounds like the speaker is talking about 11-11, 11-21.
I'm speaking on item number 7.
We're
Okay.
not
yes.
on the not on the rule that we've already talked about.
Okay. So, okay.
Public
With all
comment
our-
items not on the agenda.
Okay. Well, I'm speaking community number 1. Is that the one?
No, you're on public comment for items not on the agenda, and 11-11, 11-21 was on the agenda.
Okay. But I'm sorry then. I'm item 2 then. No. Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Harvey Eder? You're on mute, Harvey.
Okay, my name is Harvey Eder. I'm the founder and director of Public Solar Power Coalition going back over 50 years. I'm the inventor of the skateboard when I was 5, 6 years old.
Thank you. We can move on. This is not within the jurisdiction of this committee.
Thank you, Harvey. That completes public comment, and next meeting is February, May 16th. So I'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for participating.